Chief Maston's with us here this morning. Good morning.
Good morning, everybody.
So I suppose you had a busy weekend, huh?
Yeah, you could say that. Yeah, everybody did.
Right.
Yeah,
But for the most part, the community comes together and helps. And
absolutely. And that's a big part of the conversation I want to have today. But it was fantastic to see all of those that have come out. And I look forward to those that will continue to come out to help. And it really, I was telling Brian earlier, it really helps to solidify what community means when people come out and just want to help.
right. And thank goodness.
What was Friday night, Saturday, early morning like?
Well,
dispatch. What did you guys all do, and when did you do it?
So it's interesting. When these things happen, I mean, we all experience it. No matter what you're doing, we all experience it. Some of us slept through it. Some of us were up watching the trees in the rain, and it happened. So it happened to all of us. So this is one of those events that has a possibility to unite all of us, but we all went through it.
Right.
Once you've experienced that, your homeowner looks at their place and goes, well, I got to cut some trees tomorrow. Oh, I've got this. I've got my garage. Look at it. You have to assess what's happening at your place. For us and for lots of people, for line workers, for those that have been out all weekend, it is that initial thing, but then it's also, I got to get my work phone. I mean, that's the first thing I grabbed, and I called in and said, what do we need? Because I was around in 2012 when the big old storms hit, and
Right.
I knew what it was like then, and we've all gotten better since then, and it's that call of what do we need? And for the city, the initial all department heads got called in. We all met at the Public Works building, and our assessment or our approach at that time is first it's public safety. We got to answer, and you're right, dispatch is inundated with phone calls. And it's a lot of people who just have never experienced anything like that. And they might not have had an immediate emergency, but there's a tree on my roof, and yes, that's important, but at that moment, that's not the most important thing. We needed to know and focus at that time. And that was about 1:30 in the morning, Saturday, about 2 a.m., somewhere in there when, everyone's starting to catch their breath and realize things have happened. Our first concern is that public safety, and we need to make sure that we're able to respond out to go and help. And that's countywide. We partner well with the Sheriff's Office and ambulance service and Bemidji Fire to provide that safety. However, we start to encounter this road's blocked. There's power down. There's cables all over the place. And that's when we really start to get into that emergency management role, and we start to call, obviously, as other people did, they start to call power companies. They start to call other resources that can help us. And for us, immediately in town, that was our Public Works department. Hey, guys, we need to get here. The road's blocked, and it was refreshing. Shout out to the Public Works department. As I arrived there, there's already 3 loaders leaving. They didn't know where they were going, but they knew they had to do something. And we had yet to establish our communication with them immediately because everything takes a little bit of time.
Sure.
But they knew we got to clear roads, and they just went out and they just did. And I think that's a mantra of a lot of people. I'm just going to help. It always goes better when we have organization and communication, but that initial, they just knew what needed to happen, and they went. And a huge shout out to them to not just wait,
Right.
because they needed, and we encountered many roads. Matter of fact, I think we had less or fewer passable roads than we had impassable roads. I mean, a lot of trees were down and a lot of power lines, and you could get, an example was Urban Avenue. You could get a certain distance, and then suddenly it was a forest. It was a forest with wires that are snapping, and you're just not going any further. So that immediate response of safety for the people and then access. And access doesn't mean my street is perfectly clear. Access means I got at least one lane to get through here. And that was the focus primarily that morning, really, was to use all of our departments and with the assistance of obviously the Sheriff's Office and Beltrami County Dispatch, fielding all of these requests and needs. Let's help where we can and really ensure that public safety and access. And, obviously at this time, nobody had really seen what had happened here.
Right.
So even for myself, who got into a building at about 2 a.m., it wasn't probably until 8 a.m. that I actually got to look outside and go, wow, this looks different here.
Right.
But as we started to get into the day and some people who slept through it started to wake up and went, wow, my car is now flat. Then those calls started to come in. And we really had to prioritize, because we're just like every other entity. We're trying to call people in and, shout out to the line crews who, dropped what they had to do and come in, and just getting those resources in to man the equipment so we can help everyone in our community takes a lot of time. And really, it's a demand on people who, I just woke up and now my truck is flat, but my job is calling and I need to help my community. And they all stepped up and they did it, and that's fantastic. But we put out a message early on, not that we wanted to discourage people from calling us about their flat car, but it's not a priority at that time. And we put out some messaging that said, if you just have property damage, it's going to have to wait. We've only got so many resources and time. We'll get to it, but it's going to take a little time. And some of that initial response, especially for people, they don't know what else to do.
Right.
So it's that initial shock reaction. My gosh, I got to call the police and report this. And ultimately, you don't have to. You don't have to report that. It's really a conversation between you and your insurance company,
Right.
Which is, of course, happening now. But it's always that almost shock reaction of people, I have to call. Well, it's not that we don't want to respond, but I just don't have the people to respond. So it was a lot of destruction in a little bit of period of time. I was just talking to Chris Muller before coming in here. We had an emergency management meeting that has a whole lot of community resources in that room, and I would be remiss to even try to remember everybody or name everybody that's in that room. But just know you have a community of leaders that have stepped up, that are willing to help, and they are trying the best that they can to get us back up on our feet. Chris Muller described the storm, and I forget the name,
Derecho.
Yep.
A unique type of storm. The highest, I think, official recorded was 106 miles an hour. He's got reports of nearly 120 miles an hour. National Weather Service did an assessment. I don't know that it's officially out yet. I don't know that they've determined whether there were tornadic activity within those storms. It is possibility. So when you look around and you go, why did it happen there and not here? We have all that unique stuff. And then you compile that with giant winds that then picked something up, and now you have much more destruction because the wind threw a metal object versus just the wind, and
Right.
you get varying damages from that. But in speaking like Beltrami Electric and Otter Trail Electric, nearly 20,000 customers for Beltrami Electric were out that morning, that evening hours. As of this morning, there's 2,000 people that still don't have power. So we need to keep them in mind, but recognize that's a substantial, almost 90% return to service by Beltrami Electric, who have just knocked it out of the park. They brought in crews from across the state to help them assist. I'm sure you've seen a lot of the crews around town, and without them, I mean, that really is it. It shows us how connected we are and how reliant we are on the power grid.
Right.
And when we don't have power, it's an eye opener. And what do I do?
Oh, and one of the most important entities to have power is the hospital, and yes, they have some generator capacity, but doesn't cover everything in the hospital.
Correct.
What were some of the things that everyone had to help out with as far as getting emergency people out of town?
Well, funny you should mention that. There were, and this is why we have skilled people. We have Chris Muller on the county side for the emergency management. We have Justin Sherwood, our fire chief, who is also our emergency management director for the city. They were dealing with that. The hospital had some generator issues, and those two, along with their team, they had some assistance in finding replacement generators. Because just because you have a generator doesn't mean it works. And
Or that it's enough.
And it never fails that when you really need something, you got issues. But it's good to know we have other people that can help us out. But you're right, there are some people that did have to be moved, that had to go to other places, and thankfully communities around us did not have damage like we had, and we were able to get those that needed resources or a different hospital bed or something to those locations. So But there was also within the ER that night a lot of triaging that needed to happen, because you did have injured people, and we needed to really focus on those that needed immediate medical care versus those that maybe could wait a bit and be triaged.
Seeing the damage now after the fact, it's mind-boggling that there weren't fatalities,
Absolutely.
much less really serious injuries, and there weren't.
Absolutely. I think it was.
You've been in law enforcement a long time. That's pretty rare, isn't it?
It's unique. I think a big advantage was the time that it happened. Most people were inside.
Sure.
If we'd had stronger winds, maybe a more forceful storm, where it was really causing structure damage. Most of the structure damage that we're seeing consists of trees on houses, sheds. Lesser structures. I don't know of any. And I might be mistaken, and I apologize if I missed it, but I don't know of any homes that were like blown away, that were collapsed. But I know there are damaged ones where it was,
Sure.
a certain part of the house was damaged, but we didn't have any of that. So combine that level of damage with people were already indoors, were already sheltered technically. If we'd have had people out playing softball, had a town full of people at the waterfront like we've had before, there's much higher propensity for injuries and that sort of thing.
What's next?
It's a whole lot of cleanup, and I brought some notes and my readers because I have to these days.
I know. I've had a couple people ask, and we said it this morning, but I would imagine the debris pickup for the city of Bemidji, they start today.
Yep.
But it's going to go on for a while, right? Because not everybody's going to
We'll-
have their stuff cleaned up today.
We'll jump right into that. I confirmed that with Sam Anderson, our city engineer. Yes, that curbside pickup. Let's just start with the rules: 5 to 10 feet from the curb, logs no bigger than 8 feet. Pile it up. They've contracted and still are contracting with businesses that are going to come by and pick those up. It's just a much more efficient way to get that out of the city rather than people lining up all at the transfer station.
Right.
That's still open, and they're working on hours. We just talked this morning that they're going to try to expand those hours if they can for people to bring the debris, south to town. But as far as in town, 5 to 10 feet from the curb, no bigger than 8 feet, but you can make the piles as big as you want to. And yes, we're going to go around multiple times.
Perfect.
So it starts today, and just know we have a lot of streets. I don't know the absolute number of miles, but there's a lot of miles in the city. So those companies are going to take a while to get through their initial and their initial cleaning. But yes, Sam this morning said it's going to be multiple weeks. I would even venture to guess probably throughout the summer. It will be multiple times. I was able to confirm because we've seen it the question a couple of times. The county is not doing curbside pickup, so if you're just outside the city, unfortunately, that pickup isn't available. But for city residents inside the city, that is available. So
That was one of the questions I heard a lot.
yeah, we've also got a lot of questions about volunteering. Danae Alamano, United Way, always steps up, huge community partner. She and the Community Resources Connection are spearheading the volunteer group effort because there's a lot of people that really want to come out and help, and we really want to help people do that because that's what community is all about. We need to get out and help each other, and especially, for those that are in the city, we have disabled people, elderly people that just can't do it. Or you also, I'll be honest, you have first responders who live in town who have focused so much on the community, their own house is still covered in trees.
Right.
We need to get out and help each other and help our neighbors out. So the Community Resource Connection, their website is crcinform.org. There is a phone number also, but I'll give that later. There's they will take, if you want to volunteer, they'll take your information. They are doing the coordinating efforts because they're also taking requests from people who, I can't clean my yard. I have a disability. I have an issue. So for both sides of the coin, if you need help, reach out to Community Resource Connections, or if you're willing to help. I was just talking to the Parks and Rec Director, Marcia Larson. Our parks got damaged significantly. They are closed, so contractors can get in there and remove trees. But because of that, the parks are closed. All of the parks programming is closed. So there's a lot of uses or people that were going to be using those spaces that now have some free time. So entities like, I believe the softball fields are also damaged. Perhaps you want to organize your softball team to come in and clean up some yards. I would encourage you to get a hold of the Community Resource Connection and say, we're willing to help, because we need a lot of people with rakes and to help clean up. You know, we obviously want to limit people using chainsaws and dangerous stuff like that, but there's a lot of pickup that needs to happen, and there's a lot of groups. I know there's a lot of service organizations and sports teams and stuff that really have always been great community partners, and this is the time to shine and come out and help your community.
The vast majority of people that are saying they're going to help want to help.
Truly.
There's a limited number that are here just to make some money and not do a darn thing.
Absolutely.
How can people spot some red flags?
We've messaged out, and we're trying as a city, we're trying to be very consistent, and the county, we're trying to be very consistent in our messaging. Initially, you'll notice that a message came from me, from our police department, and it was during that time where it was safety, where it was the immediate life-threatening type stuff, and that partnered with the with the fire department. So our Facebook pages, which seems to be our best outlet for information, that's where we were sharing the information. As the event continues to change and goes from life-threatening to this long-term cleanup, we naturally progress that it then turns into emergency management. So then Chris Muller, who is the county emergency manager, really kind of takes over as lead, and all of the messaging you'll see, I have his press release. He's been really good about putting out 2 a day. That's where you can find all of your information about volunteering and scams and stuff that we'll get into. In the last round of storms, scams is something that we dealt with a lot, because you're right. We have people who have a need, who are scared. They don't have the resources. They don't know what to do, but they have this mess in their yard and they needed it cleaned up. There are people who legitimately show up with a chainsaw and say, I'll help you clean up your yard. And it's fantastic. But then there are also people who show up and say, I'll clean up this whole place. It'll be $5,000. You give me 2 today, $2,000 today. I'll be back tomorrow. And we saw it in 2012. They never showed up again. And now we have people who have been victimized twice. So just for the city aspect, our city is working diligently, because there is a requirement to be a licensed, permitted tree removal service, or any service in the city. They're working on making a kind of a fast track application, so companies who want to be working in the city can fill that out and get certified. And really what that involves is the city checks their credentials and checks their insurance, make sure that they're viable. They are a business and they have insurance in case they do damage your home or do
accidents happen.
Accidents happen, even amongst professionals. So the city's working on expediting that permitting process. They're also, while I'm on the topic, they're also trying to expedite the building permit, because as you have that hole in your roof, technically you need a building permit to fix it. But the reality is we only have so many building inspectors, and everybody wants to get it fixed, and we want to help that too. So we're trying to work on a process to make this much faster. So check with City Hall. They're working on it, and hopefully it's up and running very soon. But you're right. There are those entities that are out to make a quick dollar. Unfortunately, we've seen people who have gone to the retail establishments, bought up a whole bunch of generators, and now Facebook and Marketplace have a whole bunch of overpriced generators. That's unfortunate that people would do that, but everybody's got to make a dollar, right?
Sure.
That is kind of the American way.
Yeah. So I wish it wasn't
Unfortunately.
that way, but that's how it is. But there are a lot of good people out there, and I think if you ask around, if you use the resources that I've already talked about, we can find you help.
Every emergency management department has a plan for this or a plan for that, but each instance is unique.
Absolutely.
You guys had to have a plan for another severe
Absolutely.
wind event.
Yep.
Probably not to this magnitude.
Well,
how much stuff were you prepared for? How much stuff did you say, we never thought of this?
Well, I think in every instance, there's always, we could do that different.
Right.
We never thought of that. That happens with everything. Thankfully, with I'll say emergency management, I am a huge fan of risk management. kind of a nerd that way, but I look at the long-term picture. Thankfully, a lot of my coworkers, the sheriff's office, Sheriff Riggs, is the same mindset. We need to prepare. So, while there are plans in place, but nothing's ever specific because, I mean, you can have a general response. That's how we knew that morning. Department heads, Public Works. We need to meet there, and that's when, I don't want to say it goes off the rails, but that's where your plan starts to make some detours because what if it had only hit the airport and the rest of the city is fine? Well, then we probably don't have to focus so much on loaders driving around the city looking for things. Maybe it is just focused up there. Or, so the event really dictates where your plan goes, but know that we have a lot of resources, I'll say staged, so that we are ready when things happen. But inevitably, that generator you were counting on in 2012, our generator at our building didn't work. So they do the monthly testing and passed every month.
Ours too.
Yeah.
But, when you need it, really? And we unfortunately, during that storm back then, we actually, our whole communication system went down. We were operating just on our little portable radios. And that was, dispatcher was sitting in dispatch with a portable radio trying to take calls that way. And it works, but those have such limited broadcasting, just like you guys, you only got so much distance with so much power. So we've got redundancies in place that help to alleviate that. But yeah, there's always
something. Well, thanks for updating us. If you want to come back later in the week, if you got time.
Absolutely.
Did we get everything, or is there
Well,
something?
I got to look at my notes here. I will mention, just because it's relevant and topic. Obviously, we have some trees. I'm looking out the window. You got some giant trees. Big root balls got pulled up. Make sure that when you're yanking those out, you might have some buried lines, some buried utilities. You technically are supposed to call 811 and have them located. I talked to Minnesota Energy Resources. They were at our emergency services meeting this morning. They have called in extra people to help for that need. To have extra people here to do locate services, because the last thing we want is to have someone hit a natural gas line or something, utility under the ground when they're pulling that stump out.
Speaking of gas leaks, there were dozens that were reported. I don't know how many of them actually happened. How many were there, and are they all taken
I don't know
care of?
that I have an absolute number, but I've never heard so many in all my days. That morning, we were chasing sparking wires and gas, and I know there were more than a dozen. We had one building explosion because of a gas leak on the north end of town. Thankfully, it wasn't completely catastrophic. It destroyed the building, but undetected, unoccupied building, thankfully, storage shed. But,
wow.
Yeah, that's what can happen with a gas leak. But with it. Really, the tree roots pulling up, you never know, because that tree wasn't always there and those roots weren't always there and that gas line was, and then it grew around it and now it fell over or fell on a meter or whatever. We had more than a dozen, I know, gas leaks all over the place. The rooftop units, I think, I can't remember all the businesses, but multiple businesses, because their rooftop heating units got tore off. Now they have a 1-inch gas line or similar squirting out the top of the roof. So we had lots of gas leaks. We were chasing a lot. The fire department did an outstanding job. They've also the fire department has brought in resources from surrounding communities. I mean, I just yesterday saw Cross Lake driving around town, so they're here to assist, I think, until tomorrow noon. So our firefighters get a little bit of a break, but also, I mean, not that they have the day off, they're also working, but there's just so much for them to do. It's nice to have those resources to call in. But
Perfect.
Wow.
yeah,
We look forward to more updates.
thanks. Appreciate it.